Trans teen mocked by teacher, then a celebrity steps in to change everything. How will this story escalate? To find out, watch the video to the end. But first, please subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications to get more stories like this. Jordan nervously adjusted his tie as he walked into the classroom. He had always tried to blend in, to avoid any attention that might make him a target. But today felt different. It was his first day at a new school, and the weight of the stares and whispers felt almost unbearable. "Look at that one," someone muttered behind him as he walked past. He pretended not to hear, keeping his eyes fixed on the seat at the back of the classroom. He slid into the chair, clutching his notebook like a shield. Mr. Stevenson, the teacher, strolled into the room, his presence commanding the immediate attention of the students. He was known for being strict, the kind of teacher who brooked no nonsense. Jordan had heard stories about him from other students, how he could reduce someone to tears with a single comment. "Good morning, class," Mr. Stevenson said, his voice booming. His eyes scanned the room until they landed on Jordan. "Ah, the new kid. What's your name?" Jordan hesitated, his throat tightening. "Jordan," he said softly. Mr. Stevenson smirked. "Jordan, huh? Is that what we're going with these days?" The class erupted into laughter. Jordan's face burned as he gripped the edge of his desk. The rest of the day was no better. Every time he tried to participate, Mr. Stevenson found a way to undermine him. When Jordan raised his hand to answer a question, the teacher would roll his eyes or dismiss him. At one point, Mr. Stevenson even made a joke about Jordan's appearance, comparing him to the kid playing dress-up. By the time the bell rang, Jordan felt like crawling into a hole. He hurried out of the classroom, tears stinging his eyes. He found a quiet spot behind the school gym, where he could finally let the tears fall. "Hey, are you okay?" a voice asked, startling him. Jordan looked up to see another student, a boy with kind eyes and a warm smile. "I'm Ryan," he said, sitting down next to Jordan. Jordan wiped his eyes. "I'm fine," he mumbled. Ryan raised an eyebrow. "You don't look fine." "Was it Stevenson? He's awful. Everyone knows it, but no one ever stands up to him." Jordan nodded silently, grateful for Ryan's understanding. That night, Jordan sat at his desk, staring at his notebook. He wanted to fight back, to stand up for himself, but the thought of confronting Mr. Stevenson made his stomach churn. Instead, he decided to write about his feelings, pouring his pain and frustration onto the page. The next day, Ryan was waiting for him outside the school. "Hey," he said, handing Jordan a coffee. "I figured you could use a pick-me-up." Jordan smiled weakly. "Thanks." As they walked to class together, Ryan leaned in and whispered, "If he says anything today, let me know. You shouldn't have to deal with this alone." Jordan appreciated the sentiment, but he doubted anyone could stop Mr. Stevenson. Sure enough, the teacher was in rare form that day, taking every opportunity to belittle Jordan. When Jordan stumbled over an answer, Mr. Stevenson said loudly, "Maybe if you spent less time trying to figure out who you are, you'd have more time to study." The class laughed, and Jordan felt like he was shrinking into his seat. Later that week, Ryan had an idea. "You should tell someone," he said as they sat in the cafeteria. "The principal, the school board, anyone who can do something about it?" Jordan shook his head. "No one will believe me. Stevenson is practically untouchable." Ryan frowned. "Then we'll have to get creative." The two of them brainstormed ways to document what was happening. Ryan suggested recording the classes, but Jordan worried about the backlash if they were caught. Instead, they decided to write everything down, every comment, every insult, every instance of humiliation. As the weeks went on, Jordan's notebook filled with details. Ryan helped him organize the information, creating a timeline of events. But even with all the evidence, Jordan was hesitant to take the next step. "What if it makes things worse?" he asked one day. "What if no one cares?" Ryan placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Someone will care. We just have to find the right person." That person came in the form of a surprise visitor. One morning, the school announced that a celebrity would be speaking at an assembly. The buzz around the school was electric as students speculated about who it might be. When the day arrived, the gymnasium was packed. The principal stepped onto the stage, smiling broadly. "We are honored to welcome a very special guest today," he said. "Please give a warm welcome to—" The crowd erupted into cheers as the celebrity walked onto the stage. It was someone Jordan had always admired, a well-known advocate for LGBTQ+ rights who had used their platform to speak out against bullying and discrimination. As they began to speak, Jordan felt a surge of hope. This was someone who might understand, someone who might be able to help. After the assembly, Jordan and Ryan approached the celebrity, clutching their notebook. "Excuse me," Jordan said nervously. "Can I talk to you for a minute?" The celebrity smiled warmly. "Of course. What's on your mind?" Jordan hesitated, glancing at Ryan for reassurance. "I've been having some problems at school," he said. "With one of my teachers." He handed them the notebook, his hands trembling. The celebrity skimmed through the pages, their expression growing serious. "This is unacceptable," they said firmly. "No one should have to go through this. I'm going to help you." Jordan's eyes widened. "You will?" "Absolutely," they said. "But first, we need to make sure this doesn't happen to anyone else. Are you willing to share your story publicly?" Jordan hesitated. The thought of exposing his pain to the world was terrifying, but he knew it was the right thing to do. He nodded. "Yes, I'll do it." The celebrity helped Jordan and Ryan prepare for an interview with a local news station. The story quickly gained traction, sparking outrage in the community. Parents demanded action, and the school board launched an investigation into Mr. Stevenson's behavior. Within weeks, Mr. Stevenson was placed on leave, and the school implemented new training programs to address bullying and discrimination. Jordan was invited to speak at a school board meeting, where he shared his story with a room full of parents, teachers, and students. "I didn't think anyone would care," he said, his voice trembling. "But I was wrong. There are people who care. And because of them, things are starting to change." The celebrity stayed in touch with Jordan, offering guidance and support as he adjusted to his new role as an advocate. He continued to share his story, inspiring others to stand up against injustice. For the first time in a long time, Jordan felt proud of who he was. He had turned his pain into purpose, and he knew his journey was just beginning. The weeks following the interview were a whirlwind for Jordan. His story resonated far beyond the local community, gaining attention on social media and national news outlets. Messages of support poured in from all over the country, some from strangers who had been through similar experiences, others from people who simply wanted to offer encouragement. Jordan couldn't believe the outpouring of love. For so long, he had felt invisible, his struggles unnoticed. Now, it was as though the world had finally seen him for who he was. "You're making a real difference," Ryan said one day as they sat in the school library. "People are talking about this. Teachers, parents, students. It's bigger than just Stevenson now." Jordan nodded, a small smile tugging at his lips. For the first time, he felt like he was part of something larger than himself. Despite the positive momentum, there were still challenges. Not everyone was supportive of the changes happening at the school. A few teachers grumbled about the new training programs, and some students mocked Jordan for stirring up drama. "Don't let them get to you," Ryan said when Jordan mentioned the whispers. "They're just uncomfortable because they're being forced to confront their own biases." Jordan knew Ryan was right, but it wasn't always easy to ignore the negativity. He leaned on his family, Ryan, and the celebrity advocate who had become a mentor to him. "Keep your head high," the advocate told him during one of their phone calls. "The work you're doing is important, and change always comes with resistance. But remember, you're not alone in this." One of the most significant moments came when Jordan was invited to speak at a national conference on education and inclusion. The idea of standing in front of hundreds of people was nerve-wracking, but Jordan knew it was an opportunity he couldn't pass up. With Ryan and his family cheering him on, Jordan took the stage. His hands trembled as he adjusted the microphone, but as he looked out at the crowd, he felt a surge of confidence. "My name is Jordan," he began. "For a long time, I didn't think my voice mattered. I didn't think anyone would listen. But I was wrong." He shared his story from the first day in Mr. Stevenson's classroom to the changes that had taken place since. He spoke about the importance of standing up for what's right, even when it's scary. When he finished, the room erupted into applause. Jordan felt a lump rise in his throat as he looked out at the sea of faces, each one a testament to the power of his message. Back at school, the atmosphere was slowly changing. Teachers were more mindful of their words and actions, and students began to feel safer speaking out against bullying. Jordan noticed that even small gestures, like a teacher asking for students' preferred names and pronouns, made a huge difference. One day, a younger student approached him in the hallway. "I just wanted to say thank you," they said shyly. "Because of you, I feel like I can be myself." Jordan's heart swelled. "You never have to hide who you are," he said. "You're amazing just the way you are." As time went on, Jordan continued to grow into his role as an advocate. He started a club at school for LGBTQ+ students and allies, providing a safe space for people to share their experiences and support one another. The club quickly became one of the most popular on campus, attracting students from all backgrounds. Ryan, of course, was by his side every step of the way. "Look at you," he teased one day during a club meeting. "You're like a celebrity around here." Jordan laughed, rolling his eyes. "Hardly, but it's nice to know we're making a difference." The turning point came when the school announced a new award for leadership and inclusion, named in Jordan's honor. The first recipient was Jordan himself, and the ceremony was a powerful reminder of how far he had come. Standing on the stage, holding the plaque, Jordan felt a mix of pride and gratitude. He knew he couldn't have done it alone. His family, Ryan, and the advocate who had stood by him had all played a crucial role in his journey. "I used to think I was just one person, too small to make a difference," Jordan said as he addressed the crowd. "But I've learned that one person can start a ripple effect. And when we come together, those ripples can become waves of change." Jordan's story didn't just end with the award ceremony, it was only the beginning of a much larger impact. News of the new Leadership and Inclusion Awards spread beyond the school, inspiring other institutions to create similar initiatives. Jordan began receiving invitations to speak at other schools and community events, sharing his journey and advocating for change. His mentor, the celebrity advocate, encouraged him to think even bigger. "You have a gift, Jordan," they said during one of their regular phone calls. "Your voice can reach people who need it most. Have you ever thought about writing your story?" The idea both thrilled and terrified Jordan. Writing had always been his way of processing emotions, but sharing those words with the world felt vulnerable. Still, he decided to take the leap. With Ryan's help, Jordan began drafting a memoir. He wrote about his experiences with Mr. Stevenson, the support he found in Ryan and his family, and the transformative power of standing up for what's right. The process was cathartic, allowing him to reflect on how far he'd come. Meanwhile, changes at the school continued to ripple out. Mr. Stevenson was officially dismissed after the investigation concluded. In his place, a younger, more progressive teacher was hired. This new teacher prioritized creating an inclusive environment, and their impact was immediate. One day, Jordan stopped by the classroom where his nightmare had begun. He peeked in and saw students engaged in lively discussions, their voices filled with confidence. It was a stark contrast to the oppressive atmosphere he had endured. For the first time, he felt a sense of closure. As he turned to leave, the new teacher caught his eye. "Jordan, right?" they said with a smile. "I've heard so much about you. Thank you for paving the way for change." Jordan felt a lump rise in his throat. "Thank you for continuing the work," he said. The book, titled Breaking the Silence, was published a year later. To Jordan's surprise, it quickly became a bestseller. Readers from all walks of life connected with his story, and the book sparked important conversations about inclusion and equality. Jordan's schedule became busier than ever. He traveled to cities across the country for book signings, speaking engagements, and interviews. Despite the whirlwind of activity, he remained grounded, thanks to the unwavering support of Ryan and his family. "You're basically famous now," Ryan joked one day as they scrolled through social media posts about the book. "Don't forget us little people when you're a big-shot author." Jordan laughed. "You're the last person I'd forget, Ryan." One of the most emotional moments came when Jordan returned to his school to speak at a special assembly. The gymnasium was packed with students, teachers, and parents, all eager to hear from the young man who had become a symbol of resilience and hope. As Jordan stepped onto the stage, he was greeted with a standing ovation. He took a deep breath, his heart pounding in his chest. "I used to dread walking into this gym," he began. "But today I feel nothing but gratitude." He spoke about the importance of community, the power of standing together, and the need to keep fighting for a world where everyone is treated with dignity and respect. By the time he finished, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. After the assembly, a group of students approached Jordan. They were members of the LGBTQ+ club he had started, now thriving under new leadership. "We just wanted to say thank you," one of them said. "You gave us the courage to be ourselves." Jordan smiled, his chest swelling with pride. "You're the reason I do this," he said. "Keep being brave. You're making a difference." As Jordan's influence grew, so did his vision for the future. He started a non-profit organization dedicated to creating safe spaces for marginalized students in schools across the country. The organization offered resources, training, and support for students, teachers, and administrators alike. Ryan joined him as the nonprofit's co-founder, using his own experiences to connect with students and encourage them to stand up for what they believed in. Together, they built a team of passionate individuals who shared their mission. "Can you believe this is our life now?" Ryan said one day as they sat in the organization's office, surrounded by stacks of letters from students thanking them for their work. Jordan shook his head, a smile tugging at his lips. "It's more than I ever dreamed of. But we're just getting started." As Jordan's nonprofit organization gained momentum, it became a beacon of hope for countless students and educators. Schools from across the country began reaching out, requesting workshops and training programs. Jordan and Ryan traveled tirelessly, visiting communities that were eager to embrace change. One day, they received a letter that stood out among the rest. It was from a small town in the Midwest, where a student named Mia had been experiencing severe bullying due to her gender identity. Her words were raw and heartbreaking. "I feel like I don't belong anywhere. I don't know how much longer I can keep fighting." Jordan's heart ached as he read the letter. He saw so much of himself in Mia's words, the same feelings of isolation and despair he had once faced. Without hesitation, he and Ryan decided to visit Mia's school. When they arrived, they were greeted by a mix of curiosity and skepticism. The school's principal, a stern-looking man in his late 50s, was polite but distant. "We've never done anything like this before," he admitted. "But we're willing to try if it can help our students." Jordan nodded. "It's a step in the right direction," he said. "Change starts with conversations." The workshop they conducted was powerful. Jordan shared his story with the students, weaving in lessons about empathy, kindness, and the importance of standing up for one another. Ryan led smaller group discussions, encouraging students to share their own experiences. Slowly but surely, the walls began to come down. At the end of the day, Mia approached Jordan with tears in her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. "I've never felt this supported before." Jordan knelt down to meet her gaze. "You're stronger than you know," he said. "And you're never alone in this fight. We're here for you." Mia's story was just one of many that fueled Jordan's passion for his work. He began to see the ripple effect of their efforts as more and more schools adopted policies to create safer and more inclusive environments. Students like Mia found their voices, and educators gained the tools they needed to foster understanding and acceptance. But Jordan knew there was still so much work to be done. The nonprofit expanded its reach, launching online resources and virtual support groups to connect students in even the most remote areas. They also partnered with major organizations to fund scholarships for LGBTQ+ youth, ensuring that no one would be held back from pursuing their dreams. One of the most memorable moments came when Jordan was invited to speak at a national summit on education reform. The event brought together leaders from all over the country, including policymakers, educators, and activists. Jordan's speech was the highlight of the summit, drawing a standing ovation and sparking a nationwide conversation about the urgent need for change. As he stepped off the stage, a woman approached him with tears streaming down her face. "My son came out last year," she said. "He's been struggling, but hearing your story has given him hope. Thank you for everything you're doing." Jordan hugged her tightly, overwhelmed by the impact of his words. "Tell him he's not alone," he said. "We're all in this together." Despite the overwhelming success of his work, Jordan never forgot where he came from. He often visited his old school, checking in on the LGBTQ+ club he had founded and mentoring its new leaders. The students there looked up to him as a role model, drawing inspiration from his courage and determination. One day, he was invited to give a guest lecture in the very classroom where Mr. Stevenson had once tormented him. Standing at the front of the room, Jordan felt a mix of emotions: sadness for the boy he had been, pride for the man he had become, and hope for the future. "This room used to feel like a prison to me," he told the students. "But now, it's a reminder of how far we can come when we refuse to let hate win." The nonprofit's 10th anniversary was a milestone celebration. The event, held in a packed auditorium, featured speeches from students whose lives had been transformed by Jordan's work. Ryan, now the organization's executive director, delivered a heartfelt tribute to his best friend and co-founder. "Jordan taught me what it means to be brave," Ryan said, his voice thick with emotion. "He showed me that even the smallest acts of kindness can create waves of change. And because of him, thousands of lives have been touched." When it was Jordan's turn to speak, he struggled to find the words. Looking out at the crowd, filled with friends, family, and countless people whose lives he had impacted, he felt a deep sense of gratitude. "This work isn't about me," he said. "It's about all of us. It's about creating a world where everyone feels seen, valued, and loved. And I promise to keep fighting for that world, no matter how long it takes." The years that followed solidified Jordan's legacy as a leader and advocate. His nonprofit continued to grow, touching lives not just in schools but in workplaces, community centers, and even government institutions. The movement he had started evolved into a nationwide network of allies working toward a common goal: creating a world where everyone could thrive without fear of judgment or discrimination. Jordan and Ryan's bond remained as strong as ever. They joked about how their lives had taken such an unexpected turn, going from a single classroom battle to leading a national organization. "If someone had told me back then that we'd be doing this," Ryan said one evening, "I'd have laughed them out of the room." Jordan smiled. Sometimes the hardest roads lead to the most beautiful destinations. The nonprofit's work reached a new level when they partnered with global organizations to address systemic issues on a larger scale. They began working with policymakers to draft legislation aimed at protecting LGBTQ+ rights in schools and beyond. Jordan found himself speaking not just to students but to lawmakers, CEOs, and community leaders. One of the most surreal moments came when he was invited to the White House to receive a Presidential Medal of Freedom for his contributions to social justice and education reform. Standing in the East Room, surrounded by his family and closest friends, Jordan reflected on how far he had come. The president's words echoed in his mind as he accepted the medal. Jordan's courage reminds us that one voice, when raised with conviction and purpose, can inspire change across the world. Back in his hometown, Jordan remained a beloved figure. The local library, which had once been a sanctuary for him, now bore a plaque in his honor. He often visited, mentoring young students who reminded him of his younger self. One day, while browsing the shelves, a teenager approached him hesitantly. "Mr. Jordan?" they asked. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course," Jordan said, closing the book he had been flipping through. The teenager took a deep breath. "How did you stay brave when it felt like the whole world was against you?" Jordan smiled, thinking back to his journey. "It wasn't always easy," he admitted. "But I learned that bravery isn't about not being afraid. It's about doing what's right even when you are. And I found strength in the people who believed in me. You'll find your strength too?" The teen's question stayed with Jordan, inspiring him to write another book. This time, it was a guide for young activists, filled with practical advice and stories from his own experiences. Titled The Ripple Effect: How Small Actions Create Big Change, the book quickly became a bestseller, cementing Jordan's role as a thought leader. With each new milestone, Jordan remained grounded. He never forgot the people who had stood by him: his parents, Ryan, and the countless others who had believed in his vision. He often said that his greatest accomplishment wasn't the awards or accolades but the lives he had touched along the way. Years later, at the nonprofit's 20th anniversary celebration, Jordan stood before a crowd of thousands. The organization had grown beyond his wildest dreams, with chapters in every state and programs that reached millions of students annually. Ryan, now a father of two and still Jordan's closest ally, introduced him with a heartfelt speech. "Jordan once told me that he didn't think his voice mattered," Ryan said. "Well, I think we can all agree that he was wrong. His voice has changed the world." Jordan took the stage to thunderous applause. Looking out at the faces of people whose lives had been impacted by his work, he felt an overwhelming sense of purpose. 20 years ago, I was just a kid trying to survive," he began. "Today, I stand before you as proof that one person can make a difference. But I didn't do it alone. Each of you is part of this story, and together, we've created something extraordinary." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. "The fight isn't over," he continued. "There's still so much work to be done. But if there's one thing I've learned, it's that change is possible. So let's keep going. Let's keep fighting. And let's keep proving that love and kindness will always win." As the crowd erupted into cheers, Jordan felt a deep sense of fulfillment. His journey had been filled with challenges, but it had also been rich with purpose, connection, and love. And as he stood on that stage, surrounded by the people who had become his chosen family, he knew one thing for certain. The best was yet to come. As the years went on, Jordan's work began to influence not just education but the broader culture of inclusivity and acceptance. His nonprofit partnered with international organizations to develop global campaigns for LGBTQ+ rights and anti-bullying initiatives. One such campaign, called Voices of Courage, featured testimonials from students and educators whose lives had been transformed by Jordan's programs. The campaign gained massive traction, with millions of views and shares across social media. Stories poured in from around the world, students inspired to stand up for themselves, teachers re-evaluating their approaches, and parents expressing gratitude for the resources that had helped their children thrive. One such message came from a teacher in a rural town who admitted to having harbored biases. "I never realized how much harm I was causing," she wrote. "Thanks to your workshops, I've learned how to listen, how to empathize, and how to create a classroom where every student feels safe. Thank you for opening my eyes." Jordan read her message aloud to his team during a meeting, his voice thick with emotion. "This is why we do what we do," he said. "Change is possible, one heart at a time." But with success came challenges. The organization faced backlash from groups resistant to change, and Jordan often found himself the target of criticism. Anonymous emails, hate messages, and even threats became a part of his reality. At times, the weight of it all felt unbearable. One evening, as he sat in his office reviewing yet another angry letter, Ryan walked in with 2 cups of coffee. "You look like you could use this," he said, handing Jordan a mug. "Thanks," Jordan muttered, staring at the letter. "Sometimes I wonder if it's all worth it." Ryan sat down across from him, his expression serious. "Of course it's worth it. Look at everything you've accomplished. Look at all the lives you've changed. Don't let a few hateful voices drown out the love and gratitude you've inspired." Jordan nodded, taking a sip of his coffee. "You're right," he said. "But it's hard to ignore." "Then don't ignore it," Ryan said. "Face it. Use it as fuel to keep going. Because for every person who tries to tear you down, there are 100 more who are standing behind you." Renewed by Ryan's words, Jordan channeled his frustrations into his work. He began hosting open forums where students, parents, and educators could share their experiences and challenges. These forums became a safe space for dialogue, fostering understanding and empathy. During one such forum, a high school principal spoke up. "I was hesitant about implementing your programs at first," he admitted. "But after seeing the impact on our students, I can't imagine going back. You've not only changed their lives, you've changed mine too." Jordan smiled, his heart swelling with gratitude. "Thank you for taking the first step," he said. "That's where change begins." The forums became a cornerstone of the nonprofit's work, bringing together diverse communities and breaking down barriers. They also provided Jordan with a constant reminder of why he had started this journey in the first place. One evening, after a particularly moving session, he received an email from Mia, the student whose letter had inspired one of his early school visits. Now in her final year of college, Mia had been accepted into a graduate program for social work. "I wanted to thank you," she wrote. "You showed me that my voice matters, and now I want to use it to help others the way you helped me. You changed my life, Jordan. And for that, I'll always be grateful." Jordan wiped away tears as he read her words. In that moment, he knew that no amount of criticism or adversity could ever outweigh the impact of his work. As Jordan's nonprofit celebrated its 25th anniversary, the event became a reflection of everything he and his team had accomplished. The gala was held in a grand hall, adorned with photos and memorabilia from their journey. Each table was filled with supporters, allies, and beneficiaries of their work. Ryan, as always, gave a heartfelt introduction. "Jordan has been my best friend, my partner in this mission, and my constant source of inspiration," he said. "His work has changed lives, and his courage has changed the world." When Jordan took the stage, he was met with a standing ovation. He paused, letting the moment sink in before speaking. "25 years ago, I was just a scared kid trying to find my place in the world," he began. "I never imagined that my struggles would lead to something this extraordinary. But this isn't just my story, it's all of ours. Together, we've built something that will outlast us, something that will continue to create change for generations to come." He spoke about the students who had inspired him, the teachers who had embraced new ways of thinking, and the communities that had come together to make a difference. He also acknowledged the challenges they had faced, emphasizing the importance of resilience and unity. "We still have work to do," he said. "But if there's one thing I've learned, it's that love and kindness will always triumph over hate. So let's keep going. Let's keep fighting. And let's keep proving that together, we can change the world." As the gala came to an end, Jordan stood by the entrance, thanking guests as they left. One by one, they shared stories of how his work had touched their lives. By the time the room was empty, Jordan felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. Ryan approached him, a glass of champagne in hand. "To 25 years," he said, raising his glass. "And to many more," Jordan replied, clinking his glass against Ryan's. As they stood together, reflecting on everything they had built, Jordan felt a deep sense of fulfillment. His journey had been filled with challenges, but it had also been rich with purpose, connection, and love. And as he looked ahead to the future, he knew one thing for certain: the best was yet to come. As Jordan's life unfolded, his journey became a story of resilience and transformation that inspired countless individuals. While the nonprofit thrived, its impact began to ripple across other sectors. Corporate leaders invited Jordan to consult on diversity and inclusion initiatives, while universities established scholarships in his name to support LGBTQ+ students pursuing higher education. One of the most profound changes came when a documentary about Jordan's life and work premiered at an international film festival. Titled Unbreakable: The Jordan Michael Story, the film chronicled his rise from a bullied teenager to a celebrated advocate for justice. It featured interviews with students, teachers, and community leaders whose lives he had transformed, as well as heartfelt testimonials from Ryan and Jordan's family. The film received critical acclaim, with audiences moved to tears by its message of hope and courage. Jordan attended the premiere, sitting in the audience with Ryan and his parents. As the credits rolled, the crowd erupted into a standing ovation. Jordan was invited to the stage, where he addressed the audience with humility and gratitude. "This film isn't just about me," he said. "It's about all of us who believe in the power of love and the strength of community. Thank you for sharing this moment with me." The documentary's success brought even more attention to the nonprofit's mission. Donations poured in, allowing the organization to expand its reach internationally. New offices were established in countries where LGBTQ+ rights were still a contentious issue, bringing hope to marginalized communities around the world. Despite his growing fame, Jordan remained deeply connected to his roots. He continued to visit schools, speak with students, and mentor young leaders. One day, he received a letter from a high school senior named Alex, who wrote about his struggles with acceptance and his fear of coming out. Jordan immediately wrote back, sharing his own experiences and encouraging Alex to embrace his truth. Months later, Alex sent another letter, thanking Jordan for his support. "Because of you, I found the courage to be myself," he wrote. "And I've never been happier." Jordan kept Alex's letter on his desk as a reminder of why he had started this journey. For every challenge he faced, there were countless moments of joy and connection that made it all worthwhile. As Jordan approached his 50th birthday, the nonprofit planned a surprise celebration in his honor. The event brought together friends, family, and colleagues from every chapter of his life. Ryan, now a father of 3 and the nonprofit's executive director, gave a speech that left no dry eyes in the room. "Jordan is more than a friend or a mentor, he's a beacon of hope," Ryan said. "He's shown us all what it means to stand up for what's right, even when it's hard. And because of him, the world is a kinder, more inclusive place." When it was Jordan's turn to speak, he struggled to find the words. "This isn't just my celebration," he said, his voice breaking. "It's ours. It's for every student who found their voice, every teacher who chose empathy, and every person who believed in the power of change. Thank you for walking this journey with me." The night ended with Jordan surrounded by the people who loved him most. As he looked out at the smiling faces, he felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. His life had been filled with challenges, but it had also been rich with purpose, love, and connection. As the crowd sang "Happy Birthday," Jordan made a silent wish, not for himself, but for the world. He wished for a future where no one would have to fight for their right to be themselves, where kindness and understanding would triumph over hate. And as the candles flickered out, Jordan knew that he would spend the rest of his life working to make that wish come true.